We are Art of War,
and we believe in creating a community where people can talk about, learn, and improve their skills at Warhammer 40K.
Our channel has live-streamed competitive matches of 40K, played by the best players in the world.
And we focus on teaching you how to get better at Warhammer, while also emphasizing sportsmanship and engagement with our audience.
We strive to play every faction in the game to a top level, while also using a variety of lists to show off different playstyles for every faction.
We also offer a variety of other videos such as Codex reviews, faction rankings, tactics videos.
When you join our channel, you become part of our community, where we emphasize learning and positive conversation about competitive 40K.
You get early access to our videos, sub badges, emotes, as well as rewatch those hangout and hobby sessions.
Joining our community is a great way for you to show your support for us, so we can keep making awesome videos for you and continuously expand the bounds of competitive 40K.
All right, welcome everybody. I am Richard Siegler, your host today, joined by a very special guest, Mr. Jim Vesal. He is the Lord of Chaos, as well as one of the best hobbyists in the entire 40K community, reigning hobby champion. Jim, welcome.
Hey, man. Thanks. How's it going?
It's great to have you here, and we've had a big week with probably the biggest event that's happened for a long time. What was it, like 180 people or so? Maybe even more, at the Dallas Open GT, where Drukhari claimed to win. It was Mr. John Lennon from the Art of War taking the victory, but top 5 was pretty much Aldari.
Yep. I don't think, I mean, it was funny because I thought, I think there's a lot of people hoping that Mark would win in order to just be able to turn around and say, look, guys, Drukhari aren't that good. So in a way, the cynical part of me is glad. Well, I'm glad John won because I love John and I'm happy for him. But I'm also glad John won for the larger issue of all the people that were basically being Drukhari deniers. I'm calling them Drukhari truthers right now on Twitter. Basically, people that are no, guys, everything's fine. Or meta needs to adapt and all this kind of that. I'm glad that they won for that reason because I feel it just kind of further reinforces the point.
Yeah, and I think it was the lowest scoring Drukhari player, the person who finished the least, still finished in the top half, and I think they were at least even.
Mm-hmm.
So when you don't have the bottom bringing you all the way down, you can tell how powerful the faction is. It just brings you to a minimum of even.
But yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I've kind of made my peace with it. I know for you, it's probably a little bit more salient given that, you're playing in events and stuff. And obviously it's probably a little bit more something that you're going to have to deal with. I know for me personally, I'm stuck in Canada here. We don't have events yet. I haven't even got my first shot of vaccine. So it doesn't really affect me. And I think for a lot of players, I think maybe there's I don't know, 40 to 50 players in the world where it actually affects at a competitive level. And I just think there's a lot of I guess people going nuts over it. It's ruining their life. And I'm just guys, just calm down. Iron Hands, almost every army that's come out, Castellan, Iron Hands, Blood Angels, Ynnari, their day their day came, for all these books. So just relax and I'm sure GW will take some action. I'm glad they didn't do anything with the FAQ, not because, sorry, I'm glad that they didn't do any nerfs in the FAQ. I think there's some rules clarifications they should have, and more, I think they could have done a better job with some of the errata and rules clarifications. But, and obviously we'll see when the Cult of Strife or the Karkadon FAQ comes out, if it does come out, if they did fix some of that stuff. But I'm glad they didn't actually do any nerfs, because I do think that I'd rather them kind of think it through, and instead of rushing them out and then having a change in a week and whatever, I'd rather them really think through any changes they might want to make, maybe test those and then implement them down the road. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
My thing is that I would much prefer they follow the video game style of focusing on small balance changes over time, small patches. So you don't need to go the full, we're going to just nerf hammer something into the ground. Instead, we are going to do small minor nerfs. The Raider probably should go up 10 points. Let's just bump it up 5 points for now and see how that goes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't even, for me, when I hear people say, oh, go up 5 points, I'm like, yeah, but, how does, if you look at a list, so 6 Raiders, that's 30 points, so that's, maybe, a smaller unit of witches or something, or, it for me, it has to be enough that it actually, makes you make a choice that you didn't have to before. 30 points just doesn't feel, say you're running 5 or 6 Raiders, 25 to 30 points actually doesn't feel like you've really had to change much, and you're just as effective. I think 10 to 15 points actually it starts to hurt a little bit more. Yeah. And then it's okay, now I actually get one less unit. 30 points still feels a little bit light. So I think, 10 points. And then obviously I think obviously some of the Cult of Strife stuff they could definitely look at. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I'm I don't want to say upset about, but I think just salty about a little bit as a Chaos player and as a Death Guard player is, when I look at the way that they've written some of the rules, especially the restrictions for both a lot of the previous factions. So if you look at any other faction, there's very little, you can't have transports that can take any type of marine, right? You can't have, I can't take, say for instance, I can't take a plague company and then put in it a Death Guard character from another plague company and still get my plague company rules, right? So in a lot of ways, a lot of the very basic game army building rules that we have in 40k right now, it seems like Drukhari just basically ignore.
Yeah, with the detachments.
Being able to take sorry?
Yeah, with the detachments, you could shove a succubus into a cabal detachment, and you have some coven units in there, and you're like, all right, cool. This is going to be a dark.
And you don't lose anything. There's no downside, right? So for me, it's if they just cleaned up some of that and just kind of went back to that more strict army building, where it's look, if you want coven units, they have to have coven transports, and they all have to have a pure coven detachment. And if you have your witch cults, they need to be pure, and you get the witch cult transport. So if they just did a little better job of just cleaning up the army building, I think it becomes a lot more balanced. But it's the fact that you can build these super complex lists, and even just looking at someone I kind of talked about this on my show a few weeks ago, but when you look at Naden's list, you have to kind of really, really understand how to build a list like that to even know that it's legal. But that's not intuitive to build a list like that, where you have Cult of Strife Succubus and a Dark Technomancer's detachment. She gets the Warlord trait, but she loses this. She doesn't get her Cult of Strife abilities, but then the detachment still gets its abilities. That's just so unintuitive, and I just wish that they would clean that up, because I feel just the way that the lists are able to be built kind of out of the normal order of things also isn't helping the situation,
Yeah. I mean, it's other things you do triple patrol, but you start at 14 CP. I mean, is there any reason for that? No. These small changes should have been made in the first FAQ, and then going from there, I think then they can start looking at points more. But honestly, my biggest complaint is that it's the negativity around the community that is going to result in people not enjoying 9th edition as much. And frankly, going from 8th to 9th, they were in a great spot. The points weren't totally what they should be, but they started to help smooth that out in the January FAQ. This just completely turns it back. Now there's a ton of negativity about 9th edition, Drukhari being broken. They're just straight up better than all the previous books, and it had been a trend where Death Guard were better than what had came before, then Dark Angels were better. Now Drukhari is. It's a spiral of negativity, and that prevents new
when you say
people.
negativity, do you mean due to people playing against Drukhari and having a bad experience? Is that what you kind of mean?
Both bad experiences and just the general talk about the edition on the 40K online communities. All the new people who are going to be checking out 40K, because Games Workshop is doing a much better job of putting a public face on 40K, especially on streaming. This is a setback for 40K that I think is completely unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think that is actually probably hurts the game more than the actual like specific gameplay experience. It's the idea that there is this like that the gameplay experience is not fun because the armies are not balanced. And like, everyone always says, well, the game's never going to be balanced. Well, I mean, I don't think anyone's asking for perfect balance here, but I think there's like, there's definitely like a level of minimal balance that we would like, right? And obviously the balance will be a range of like, it's gonna be a range, and it's gonna be from armies that win to 45 to 55 to 60%. But when you look at the win rates for Drukhari, it's definitely worrisome, and it definitely makes me concerned to wonder if this is the direction that the game's gonna go. Like, is this something that we can expect to see in the future books? This kind of just level of power creep, or is this kind of like a one-off anomaly?
I would be much more fine with it if it was like 8th edition, where they were going to be active about balancing, both in the FAQ/erratas and in big FAQ updates. It doesn't seem like they're going to be doing that very often, and so you can't be just putting out a book like this that's straight up better than everything else if you're not going to actively patch the game. And I said, it's not about big patches. We're not trying to nerf hammer Drukhari into the ground. It's a great book. It's one of the most diverse books. If it was the foundation for all the Codex of 9th edition, the game would be in a great spot, but it wasn't. So it's an outlier. If you look at Necrons, I thought that would kind of be where a lot of codexes would end up. Very safe overall. Different build styles, some powerful traits, but nothing over the top, nothing broken.
Right.
They've since gone quite a distance away from that design philosophy.
Right, yeah. And I mean, it's hard to say, like, I don't like people saying just wait for the next book, because then it's just a matter, and then you're always in a situation of just waiting for the next book. I think I agree with you. Like, I'd love to have, I don't necessarily know if their plan is to not do those balance changes. Like, we haven't really seen, it's been such a weird year with COVID and stuff that, like, we haven't really seen, like, what their kind of roadmap is. Like, I know with 8th edition, I feel like we didn't really know that they were going to be doing, like, twice a year chapter approves and twice a year FAQs until, like, a good year into the edition, when I think after maybe the first one, they're like, hey, because I think from what I remember, the first few months, they were doing them, like, quite often. They were trying to do those little patches, and then people were complaining that it was like too often. So then they're like, okay, guys, we're going to stop doing that. And now we're going to go to this like kind of twice a year system. And they announced that. So I wish they just came out and would say something like that. Like, hey, this is kind of going to be the new way that we balance games. And I'm hoping, and we haven't heard much about it, but I'm hoping we get a chapter approved 2021 and like, with like the field manual for 2021, essentially like that's just like an annual thing where they can kind of rebalance the missions, where they can use that to, fix secondaries, any of that, because right now the secondaries I think is a big part of it. Yep. There's just a lot of really bad ones, and Drukhari play really good into the. See, that's the other part about Drukhari. It's not just that their book is powerful in a vacuum. Like, we could just line up from each other with no mission except just kill each other and they'd still win. But on top of that, they're just really good at playing 9th edition. And so that's something that's kind of fundamental to the way that the army is designed, that they're just so good at playing the way that 9th edition is designed. And so the question is, do we need to have more variety in missions? And it's one of the things I actually really miss about 8th edition, which, we had ITC missions, we had Maelstrom, we had Nova, we had Adepticon, we had a lot of TOs used to do their own missions. Like, there's something that they would spend time to do. And we just don't see that anymore. So now, because the mission set is basically completely uniform across the board, you're always going to have an army that's superior in one or two missions. Just like my Plague Bearless was really good at ITC, but like not so good at like at Nova or Maelstrom because it was slow. You're seeing kind of like the equivalent with Drukhari, where they're really good at the way the 9th edition missions are written, but maybe there's another style of mission set where they wouldn't be as good. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think they're so good just in general, but I think it's something that they should definitely be looking at.
I think in at least a couple more missions that are more endgame focused could be a nerf to Drukhari. If you wanted to go
Yeah.
the old StarCraft route where you balance around maps, this is for StarCraft 1, StarCraft Brood War, they stopped balancing the actual game and instead map creators came up with different maps that would help a certain faction if it was struggling. So in that case,
Right.
Drukhari are still losing most of their army, certainly against the other top armies like Admech, by the end of the game. It's just they have like one extra raider plus stuff too many. If they had one less
Yeah.
stuff, just because a lot of the things are undercosted, they'd have to play the mission more carefully, and they would struggle more in those late game ones, more end game missions. So maybe something like that puts some secondaries that help with end game scoring, in addition to things like While We Stand, could help other factions at least weather the storm of Drukhari. But I don't know if they're going to go that direction. I would love to see a new mission set because, like you said, half of the secondaries are just garbage. You almost never take a significant number of them. Most of the psychic secondaries are bad. You have teleport homers, which I've never seen anybody. Investigation sites is awful because you just put a unit in the middle of the table and it's like, oh, you can't get your points. Line breaker's pretty tough, though it's one of the easier ones of board control. It's certainly easier than the action secondaries. I'd like to see more stuff like Raise the Banners, the active.
Yeah, it's the problem with secondaries. It's very feast or famine. It's kind of like either you're getting a lot or you're getting like very little. Do you know what I'm saying? And because there's so many bad ones, like you can really build lists to tailor so that your opponent has a hard time of getting them. I do really hope, and one thing that I wish is that I would love it if in chapter approved they actually just released set of faction secondaries for all the factions that don't have them, like 1 or 2. Just so that like we can bring them on parity, because I do actually think that's a big issue as well. Not necessarily with Drukhari, because I actually don't think they're not like as good as say some of the Marine ones, but you know, prayer on the weak is still pretty strong, especially in an army that wants you to come close. Like you kind of want to stay away from them, but they're like, okay, stay away from me, and then they just get points. So it's definitely something that I think would help balance the game. I definitely don't see TOs banning faction secondaries. It hasn't caused enough of a, I guess, drama for it to be like widely talked about, I guess.
Yeah, I had one idea to buff the action secondaries because they are tougher overall in armies like Drukhari that have speed. Very easy to deny things. If your opponent takes Raise the Banners, Drukhari player goes first, and they fire and fade a raider onto the objective you were going to raise your banner on. They're pretty much never for the rest of the game going to raise a banner. I think there should be some sort of like supporting action. One unit does the action, and another unit also gives up their shooting and ability to charge, etc., to support that unit. And if so, you can complete the action even if enemy units are within range of the objective. Something like that, where if you're sacrificing extra resources, you can still do it even if your opponent's right in front of you on the objective. I think that would seriously help things like Raise the Banners.
I'm not a huge fan of the action mechanic in general. I feel like it's a little too punishing. Yeah. I would prefer it if maybe like you pick a phase, and in that phase you perform the action, and then you can't do anything else. So like maybe, you know, and maybe like a psychic unit, like you could still maybe fight, but like you couldn't, for instance, shoot, or maybe you can't move, but you can shoot and fight. Like it's kind of like an either or. Right now it just feels like you have to just include units to perform actions. And for a lot of more elite units, that's really hard sometimes. Like Chaos, Space Marines, like a lot of the armies, like they don't necessarily have infantry units, cheaper infantry units that can just they can give up to do nothing. Every unit needs to be performing every turn. The units are just too expensive. So I'd like to see it to be a little bit less punishing on units that perform actions, especially obviously some of the psychic actions, because it should just be like a spell. Like, hey, instead of casting one of your spells, perform the psychic action. But right now, you got to give up your entire turn, basically, to do it.
Well, that's why I play Grey Knights every so often, and I pretty much never take the Psychic secondaries just because I need most of the powers on my units throughout the game, and I can't afford to not be casting in that key turn. So, I don't know. I would like them to be less punishing for sure. We have a $5 super chat from Kyle Norman. Thank you so much, Kyle. Congrats to John. Question. I am looking to play Death Guard for the first time. My main army is Dark Angels. How close are the playstyles? Well, luckily we have Mr. Jim Vesal here who can tell you all about Death Guard. And also, Kyle, if you're still in the chat, please do tell us what you want your sub-match to be, because you were one of the top 2 super chatters and donors of the channel in the last month. So let us know what you want that matchup to be.
Do you want me to answer that question?
Jim, tell us about Death Guard and their playstyle.
Yeah, I mean, they're very different armies, to be honest. I mean, the one kind of similarity is that they have very strong Terminator units. But past that, I mean, I'd still say that Dark Angels are a shooting-heavy army with very fast elements. Death Guard just don't have the Ravenwing portion of the Ravenwing portions of the Dark Angels make them such a strong list. They're able to kind of get to different areas of the board. They're able to do a lot of shooting, especially things like Talon Masters with like speed, shooting, and close combat. So I personally feel that, and obviously they're Space Marines, so they have access to the entire list of Space Marine data sheets, which means they're just very versatile. Death Guard, if you like being evil and like a little bit, Death Guard actually aren't that resilient. Like it's actually really funny when you think about their entire deck of stratagems. They don't have a single stratagem that makes them harder to kill. All of their stratagems are offensive, essentially, or based around putting up mortal wounds.
Cloud of Flies,
other. Sorry?
Cloud of Flies, though. That is
okay,
one.
So there's one stratagem that is like very expensive and like very hard to use effectively.
Once per game, basically.
But outside of that, it's like they don't have a transhuman. They don't have a stratagem that gives them a once per phase. Disgusting and resilient. They don't have anything that like makes them, -1 to wound or anything like that. So they're actually not that hard to kill outside of the damage, the DR. I guess what are we calling it these days in this edition? The ignore wounds ability of disgustingly resilient. So yeah, I mean, I definitely would go with personally if you're planning to do one or the other. Was that the question? He couldn't decide which one to do.
No, he wants to know how similar it is to Dark Angels because he wants to start Death Guard. And I agree with you. Dark Angels.
It's not that similar, to be honest. Outside of like really cool Terminator units, like Deathwing Terminators and Death Shroud are some of the coolest Terminators in the game. But outside of that, they play very, very differently. Obviously, Demon Prince is really cool, and if you ever get to like high level Chaos player, being able to bring in and play in a little bit more of the Chaos as a super faction is actually really fun too. So.
And we're seeing that from lists like Mark Perry's Emperor's Children plus Mortarion and the Foulblight Spawn in the Heretic starting.
Mark Perry's like the Sean Naden of Chaos with his like crazy lists like that. Yeah. He writes and no one understands and then just goes and wins stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he won a GT the other week with it and was beating up Drukhari players. He's actually beaten Nick in several practice games with the Emperor's Children build. So I don't know. They really can't kill Mortarion. He just exists, and so they have to play around that fact.
Can't kill him.
Not when he gets miasma up, and it's just not very efficient into them.
Yeah, I guess so. It just takes a lot.
The thing is, he has a break of Noise Marines and a Leviathan Dread. So as soon as you stick out the Raiders, the Noise Marines pop reroll wounds and the extra damage and strength, and they just blow away all the Raiders with shoot twice, vets, etc. You can't risk that, so you're not actually shooting at Mortarion if you want to keep your boats alive. Especially in the early game, so he just survives and gets into your lines. It's actually a very, very clever list. All right.
That's cool.
What have you been working on for Chaos, Jim?
Well, I just finished my Bellicor. I know you mentioned you'd gotten a chance to take a look at it, so that was a very fun model to paint. And then right now I'm just working on a Demon Prince from Creature Caster, and this is actually for a charity called 40 Hours of 40K. It's like a men's mental health charity, men and women, I think, that I'm basically going to be donating this model to that charity. So I have obviously 1,000 Demon Princes lying around my house always. So this one I decided to finally put together. I think I've had it for like 2 years in a box. So I finally decided to paint it so I could so I'm going to be painting this up and then donating it to the charity. So, but other than that, honestly, I'm kind of like done with Chaos at the moment. Not like playing it, but just painting it. Like my Death Guard is basically fully finished. I've got almost everything that I need painted. I'm probably going to maybe do some Noise Marines at some point, but I'm kind of holding out a little bit. I'm hesitant to convert up a bunch. I think I'll probably get started on some demon stuff. I'm hoping with the Bellicor model, whether we get a full demon book soon. Hopefully we'll find out this week at Warhammer Fest what's kind of coming up for codexes, but I want to kind of build up a bit more of my demon forces. So I actually don't own a single Keeper Secrets, believe it or not.
Really?
And I know they're like the hotness. So maybe between the current models and those new Keeper secrets, I'll paint up a few Slanesh stuff. So
Now that Charity mentioned, where could people in chat go to find more about that?
I think it's just 40K, 40 hours, 40K. Let me just look it up. 40 hours of 40K. Yeah, if you go to Facebook and just search in 40K, 40 hours, 40K, you can find the page there and all the information as well. So
excellent.
Yeah.
We've got a $5 super chat from Kyle Norman once again. I want double D McCarran Nids versus Drukhari. Also, between Dark Angels and Death Guard, which would you take to a grand tournament right now? Jim, would you like to go first?
Well, I mean, I would take Death Guard because I never played Dark Angels in my life.
Come
but
on.
I think like if I had to pick what's probably a better list overall that has better matchups, especially going into the current meta, I'd probably say Dark Angels. Because Death Guard don't beat Drukhari. They're just like pure Death Guard. They're too slow and they don't have the tools. They don't have the shooting. They don't have the tools. They don't have the speed to even touch Drukhari. So I would probably take Dark Angels, who I think, although still will have a hard matchup. Talon Masters are really good, and like they have enough variety in units to actually build like a fairly competitive list, I think.
Yeah, I definitely. John is going to try out some more Ravenwing variations, less on the Terminator. The Terminator bricks are kind of done. If you're running a big brick of Terminators, you're just not very good into Drukhari anymore. So,
well, I think one of the things that Drukhari showed us is like you need to be able to have lots of different sources of damage.
Yep.
Because of the fact that like, okay, so your big Terminator block can only be in one place at a time, and that's an issue because Drukhari are in like 30 places at a time. Yep. So they're able to basically just dance around you and avoid you.
You know, and that's a great point overall, and why I think the Necron Warrior lists are actually pretty interesting, because as we're seeing firepower, you want a lot of little bits of damage all over the board instead of like a single big unit that's like a unit of 5-6 Plasma Inceptors that are going to try and just nuke a unit away. You don't want that against Drukhari. You certainly don't want to get that close to them. You don't want to be 18 inches away and then to be blowing up transports, because then their melee just walks into you. So units like that going out of the meta really buffs Necron Warriors, in my opinion. So this week, on Tuesday, in our YouTube game at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be running an updated Warrior spam build. No Silent King this time. It's Custom Dynasty, and I'm going to be playing into Nyx Drukhari. So we'll see if the Warriors can do it. I'm running 3 bricks of 20 Warriors and then 2 10-mans in Ghost Arcs, backed up by various firepower, the Hexmark Destroyer. So it should be an interesting matchup. I don't think outside of the Succubus, Drukhari, the builds that we're seeing have enough ways to kill 20 Warriors before I use reanimations and then eventually Res Orbs and Ghost Arc abilities. So I'm going to put it to the test, and we're going to see if it can actually deny those Drukhari the primary points that they expect.
Yeah, I mean, the Dark Lances don't do much to Warriors. They kill a Warrior turn, basically. And then, you're getting full reanimation. Obviously, the biggest thing is obviously just like the close combat, right? Those witch blocks can definitely do a lot of damage, but I think a lot of people have been taking like the strength 4 witches, it seems, because no one really even cares about the toughness anymore of the witches. They're just like as much damage as possible and then just die. That's kind of the goal.
Yeah, either they go for the 10 bricks or they just go for 5 witches, give them the extra movement combat shrug, and just use them as mission playing tools to deny primary of the opponents. And that's what we're really seeing for the most part in the lists that were at Dallas Open. Most lists had like one larger brick of witches, but outside that and the Succubus, they don't have amazing ways to deal with 20 Warriors. So we'll see. Maybe I can do it against Nick's list, and if I can, it'll give me a lot more faith in Necrons than I've had recently. Poor Necrons. Why did they have to have the safest codex possible?
Them kind of go from their perch to every book that came out feels like they're getting worse and worse.
Yeah, they were just... They have nothing broken. There's nothing broken about that codex. It's all very vanilla.
It's actually 2 Hellhounds.
Yeah. But I think they're very fortunate that their traits were actually good. The Custom Dynasty trait is one of the best in the entire game. It's just their data sheets don't quite live up to that. And also the other synergies they get from Warlord traits, relics, and stratagems aren't as good as what we've seen from other codexes, unfortunately. But just points drops will help make their data sheets even more effective. So there's at least a silver lining there. And then to answer the question, I would also agree with Jim in taking Dark Angels over Death Guard. The speed really is a major advantage, and you need to be able to pop transports and shooting, and then with, you know, 1 or 2 units, and then have more units to still shoot the rest away. Because you don't really want to be engaging Drukhari. Either you're right next to their entire army, or they can be right there with an advance and charge on turn 2, or you're going to be charging into things like Incubi, and if you fight last, you just threw away an extra unit that you didn't have to. So I definitely think Dark Angels play better into a meta where you need to beat Drukhari than Death Guard. Sorry, Death Guard players.
Yeah, I mean, sucks, but hey, you guys want the truth, right? We're not gonna sugarcoat it for you.
But they're both filthy chaos armies, and I would never play them.
Well, it's funny because I just what? Yeah, I'm working on some Dark Angels commissions, which is basically chaos, and then I know there's new Fallen rules coming out, which is exciting. So I'm hoping there's something cool there. I don't have high hopes, to be honest, but new Fallen rules will be cool.
When was the last time Cypher was actually a character that was played in tournament lists? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I painted my Cypher this year just because I wanted to kind of complete the full cast of like Chaos Codex Space Marine characters. But I don't think I've ever actually seen him in a list. If anyone will bring Cypher into a list, it'll be Mark somehow. We'll figure out a way to make him useful. He's the kind of guy that I could see like actually having a Cypher, but outside of that, he doesn't really just exist, I guess.
Well, I remember in 8th edition, there was like a long period of time where people, you know, not many people, but like occasionally you'd get the question of whether with Cypher in a list, you could summon into an Imperial list.
Yeah.
I remember
like
that. Yeah. I don't think anybody ever tried it at a tournament because it was like,
one of those things. It's like everyone likes the idea of it, but it's actually like not that great.
Yeah. Summoning overall isn't great. I hope they buff that for pure demon lists.
Yeah, I am optimistic that because we didn't see the like datasheet reprints and the codexes, that actually gives me a lot of hope that they're rethinking the entire demon book, because I definitely feel like it needs it.
Yeah, them and Tau, I think Tau and Tyranids, I think need it the most.
For sure. All right, what army are you looking forward to the most? Tau, you think? Is that still your one true love, or have you moved on?
I love Admech as well. Admech, Tau, I like Inquisition, but that's not really going to be a full codex ever, or not in the near future. But I'm most excited for Tau, just because people get super salty about playing against Tau, and for whatever reason, I just really enjoy winning with the faction.
Yeah.
It's just amusing to me, especially the Nick and John Salt. And I also know that if Tau get a busted codex, they won't be switching to Tau because they know they can't beat me in the mirror matchup.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people are saying, like, I was talking to someone last night, and they're like, oh, well, there are lists that beat Drukhari, and I'm like, well, what? And they're like, Tau, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm like, maybe like a very certain Tau build can do it, but like, I think in general, you know, they're gonna lose, even though they might kill a lot, they're gonna lose the objective game, you know.
That's the thing, though, is the Tau list that I've been playing denies primary very well, because it basically plays similar to Drukhari. I have a bunch of Devilfish loaded with 5-man Breacher squads. I pop them out onto the objective. If the Drukhari player has Obsec sitting on their objective, I just destroy it with the Airburst Crisis unit. If they don't, I just send the 5 Breachers, tag the objective, boom. Get rid of their primary points. So I can actually play the primary game even, and I played a War Room game with Nyx, Drukhari, and Harlequin allies about 2 weeks ago, and I actually beat them. A very narrow game. I had to kill a Shadow Seer in combat on turn 5 to win it, and I kill him in combat with Remora drones, but it actually worked. Nice. So I definitely think there are Tau builds that can do well into Drukhari. I think you have to lean heavier into missile pods, which is kind of where I'm going, and you're going to see a taste of that on Thursday when I play my Tau list into John's Tyranids. I'm not sure what John is playing with Tyranids because he's been a little down on them recently. But I think he's hooking up some new ideas. I know he really wants to try Ravagers. Or not Ravagers, Reavers. What are they called? Raveners. They're called Raveners.
Raveners, I can't remember.
So many models that you never see. But apparently they have a boatload of attacks, and they're kind of like a much cheaper Gene Stealer unit. In a
4-man Gene Stealer.
Exactly. A much cheaper, but volume of attacks type of unit. So maybe we'll see the Ravener rush.
Yeah. Do you think so? That's like a good point. Like, I was all these people are saying like, oh well, build. You just got to build lists that beat Drukhari or in these lists. Have you sat there and kind of like, like I sat there the other day and I was like trying to build some chaos lists. I'm like, okay, what if I wanted to build like a just purely tailored to Drukhari? Like, what would I include? But do you feel like maybe either whether it's NIDS or AdMech, well, I know AdMech can do it, but like with like Tau, is there like a list that like, you mentioned the smart missile, like the burst smart missiles, I think, and the non-line of sight shooting, which I think is really important against Drukhari. But like, is there some like, do you agree with that sentiment, or do you think that like, yes, it's possible, but like the lists become just super skewed and like not very good generally? Because that's kind of my thought is like, yeah, you can build a list. I could probably build a list specifically just for killing Drukhari, but like, is it ever going to actually play Drukhari because it's going to lose its like first two games, in an event?
So I'm on the same train as Mark Perry, is that I can come up with a list that plays the meta well and is also particularly good into Drukhari. So I'm doing that for Tau and AdMech right now. For Tau, it is leaning heavier on the missile pods, and those are, because it's 36-inch range. I need to be able to shoot away the raiders on the distant objectives, and then still have extra shooting in terms of missile pod commanders, especially Cold Stars, to be able to get the angles on the things that pop out. So I also think Remora drones are amazing into Drukhari. By and large, the melee options that Drukhari players are investing in don't have the fly keyword, so can't interact with the Remora drones, and their shooting is pretty mediocre into them being -1 to hit, count as in cover, and 5 wounds. Dark Lances can do it over time, but it's no guarantee, and if you underperform and you committed your raiders and maybe even if you have Ravagers to try and kill the Remoras, now my missile pod units get to blow away the tanks. So I think there is a Tau list that can actually play it pretty darn well. If Cult of Strife didn't exist, if they didn't have Ignore Overwatch, then I think Tau would actually genuinely be a bad matchup for Drukhari. But they definitely have to play.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know for me, like, I mean, outside of building a like super soupy like chaos list like Mark would do, there's very few like, I was looking at like, one of the things I do like about new codexes coming out is like going back to your like existing codex and kind of like rereading all the rules, the data sheets, the like entries, and kind of trying to rediscover like things that maybe you had passed over because they didn't seem to have a place, and kind of seeing, okay, this is a thing that maybe I wouldn't have looked at before, but now in this new Drukhari meta or whatever, it actually is really good. So I actually really enjoy that about like when new books come out, is that kind of like rediscovery of like old, you find these like old crumbs and treasures of like units or like abilities or weapon profiles in books, things that you wouldn't have normally like looked at, but because there's like a new villain in town, things kind of are given kind of new life. And so I was kind of doing that in my Chaos book. I was like going back looking through all my Thousands and stuff and all my old Chaos, all the Chaos Space Marine rules to see kind of what was in there that might be that nugget. And yeah, there was not a ton. Like there's some stuff, but for the most part, I was like, yeah, it's okay. But like some of it was Forge World, which as much as I like is also just feels like poor rules writing that I have to rely on Forge World to like save me.
Yeah, well, welcome to Tyranid life. They're relying on the Steam Karens and the Harridan to carry them. But yeah, overall, I do think that revisiting some of these codexes, there are actually options that are particularly good into armies like Drukhari. So
yeah,
I'm trying to experiment with both AdMech and Tau to come up with a good list. But I would really love my AdMech codex to be out so I can decide what exactly I should run.
Hopefully get an announcement tomorrow or later this week. Any predictions for this week's? There's like, it sounds like there's 240K days. So any predictions?
I think we'll get probably they'll line up the next 2 codexes. I imagine. We'll figure out what those two are.
So obviously, like, you mean past AdMech?
Yeah, past AdMech.
Okay. I mean, I'm not a betting man, but I'd imagine it's Orcs and Sisters.
Yeah, I would just
Orcs
and Sisters.
Given what we've seen.
Maybe another campaign book that they'll preview, because demons are coming somewhere. It's either a codex or a campaign book.
Any predictions for like the next book after Sisters? Or sorry, like after Orcs and Sisters? Because I kind of feel like we haven't really seen much past those two. Like we've seen obviously the new Orc previews and the Sister stuff, but
I imagine that's probably where they slot the campaign book in, because we saw a preview that looked like a GSC type of like control, an arm with a very GSC looking control button thing, and we've also demons are gone. Be'lakor is getting rules somewhere, and demons are probably getting rules. So I imagine it's GSC demons and 2 other factions. Please be Tau, and hopefully that will come after those 2 codexes, because that point we've gotten several more armies. The meta's changing even more, and then some of the less loved armies that maybe have a codex come in a while longer, they at least get some updated rules, and hopefully they also throw in a chapter approved update to the missions. I think that kind of summer with those books, hopefully the meta will be in a much better place than it is now.
And, that might be part of the reason we didn't see anything this week. Maybe they're going to announce some of this new, chapter approved, new FAQ, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that could be why maybe they're holding off on any big changes until after that, and maybe we'll see some points changes. I just really wish they would go to a digital format for the points updates so that they could be a lot more agile with them. I mean, you keep the rules as they are. If you guys want to do a slower on the, I know they don't necessarily like to release, rules too often, but at the minimum, I think points is a very easy way to, especially once they get the app kind of sorted out. So it sounds like there's still quite a few issues, but which I'm sure has been talked about. But it would be nice if we could actually get more, I guess, often points updates at least.
Yeah, if they're so married to the physical book, honestly, they should keep it the same way it is, except remove all the points. Points are something that's only online, and they reprint them as they need to be updated. That way, people don't feel bad that they bought a book that's now out of date, and they can just regularly change points as needed. Small changes. Once again, small, a couple points. Here's some garbage demon units, aka the Khorne line. Let's go ahead and just drop every unit another 3-4 points per model, and just see where we end up. Stuff like that they could just do. Because honestly, the Khorne line has been in such a poor place for the entirety of 8th, or most of 8th.
For demons?
Yeah, demons.
Oh yeah. Blood Crusher is what? Skull Cannon what?
All this Karanak.
I was saying, when was the last time you said any demon chariots? Ever. Even the Slash one's 60 points and people still don't take it.
You'll appreciate this one, Jim. We were hanging out with Mark one time at a dinner, and Mark's talking chaos as he does. And he was trying to come up with a good Thousand Suns, Zinchian type list with good while we stands, and the options were Mutilith Vortex Beasts or the Fate Skimmer.
Right.
Both absolute trash tier units, but hey, there's so many points that they can be while we stands in his list.
I'm really hoping I got my bets on Mutilith Vortex Beasts making a ferocious comeback in the 9th edition Thousand Suns book, so don't count them out, guys. But yeah, we'll see. I don't. It's funny how the models for both are pretty awful, to be honest. So it'll be. I'm curious to see if what they do with Thousand Suns.
I want to know if those 2 Slanesh, the butterfly one, the greater demons that they previewed. I wonder if those are going to be 40k as well, or just Age of Sigmar.
I don't think I've ever seen a demon. I think the question, they're greater demons of Slanesh, that's what I said. So I've never seen a demon release that isn't for both. I know there are things obviously mortal followers. That obviously the Slanesh stuff for Age of Sigmar is only for Age of Sigmar, but it would be interesting to see if one of the things I envy about more 8 AOS is that the demon, all their books are demonkin books. So their Slanesh list is mortals and demons combined.
Yeah.
So I would love it if we got something like that for 9th edition, where it was just called Chaos Demonkin, and it was basically 4 different factions of Emperor's Children and Slanesh, and Tzeentch and Thousand Suns and Tzeentch, and Death Guard and Nurgle, and Khorne and World Eaters and Khorne. That would be really cool. Or something along those lines. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Cult Legions.
Yeah.
But just something where it was more of a mixed integrated force. I think that would be really cool.
There should be major buffs for bringing pure Khorne or pure, Nurgle, whatever.
The Demonkin book had such a cool idea, and I just wish they had continued it, I guess.
The Age of Sigmar, the models in Age of Sigmar are amazing.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's one of the cool things. That's the thing I think Age of Sigmar has an advantage. As much as I hated them blowing up the old world, a nice part about it was that, the design space, they were able to kind of, reset it and kind of do whatever the hell they want. Well, we're still waiting on, New Guardsmen and Plastic Aspect Warriors, which, as much as cool as they'll be, how cool will they really be, Yeah. And I think if they ever released, a brand new army for 40k, there'd be, outrage, because there's so many things that are still not released and updated. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
And like armies like Grey Knights too. Are they
yeah,
gonna get Primaris or not? Are they gonna get an entire new line? Or are they gonna just be stuck as old Marines for a while?
but like their line is plastic, so it's kind of hard to see them getting.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe they get special Primaris units and they do it slow too.
like
Maybe they start
a
like
single unit of like Primaris Paladins and like Strike Force. Is that what's
yeah,
their
they have Strike Marines.
yeah,
Strike Marines.
Strike Force, right? Like the regular dudes.
Yeah, Strike Marines.
Like they get 1 unit of Terminators and 1 unit of or like Terminator S guys, and then just 1 unit of like the regular Grey Knights in Primaris size, and then maybe a few characters.
The big problem is there's so many characters across the game that are going to need to be updated too. Like Azrael himself is just this little mini chapter master. Dante's model is super old. They have so many characters that are going to need to be updated to Primaris for Marines.
Yeah, I didn't realize it, but I got an Azrael for this. They still make him in metal. He's still metal model. Like it's not even
Really?
fine cast.
Wow.
So yeah, I have two metal Azraels right now. I ordered them and I got them like literally like 3 weeks ago from GW in like full pewter, and I was like, oh, I was like excited because I love painting pewter models, but I was like, that's a surprise. I didn't expect them to be pewter. I assumed they would be fine cast at this point.
John actually did a really cool conversion of I think he started with a Primaris captain, and then added all of the Azrael's different bits on there. Looks really cool. But
Yeah, I'm gonna convert up an Ezekiel using the Grandmaster Lazarus, I think. Just
that
because
makes
the
sense.
current model's not great. But it's funny, those old Marines, like comparing them.
Yeah, like Dante seriously needs an upgrade. My God, for such an important character in the fluff, he has not gotten the love.
Old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Agree that the game doesn't seem to be in a healthy place. Missing the balance FAQs, like in 8th edition. Hopefully they get back to it. It's very reasonable to assume that they haven't been doing it simply because not enough books are out, and they will do it as we get more. I would just like them to give us a long-term plan of where they're hoping to go. Just tell us. You don't need
40K
to keep
roadmap?
missing.
That's like insane.
That's insane.
That's an insane ask, Richard.
Return of the Super Tuna? Nope. The Town R is officially dead. Losing Battlesuit was kind of the end of the Town R. Also not Ballistic Skill 2+ anymore.
Do you have a Manta, though? That's the question.
I do not have a Manta. I actually don't have any of the Tau flyers, the Forge World ones.
Yeah.
Besides the
That's
Remorse.
surprising. Was that Manta like that's like $2,000 or something crazy like that?
I think it's more. That's the
big one, right? Like the massive one?
Yeah, it's the massive one. I think it's 2,000 points in the game.
Okay.
It's something crazy.
It'd be cool if like they did more Titans though, like Tau Titans, Necron Titans, Tyranid. Like I know they have the higher duel, but it's kind of lame. But it'd be cool if we actually saw like giant constructs for some of the 40K races.
It would be cool, but at the same time, let's just focus on the codexes because right, I know Forge World's a separate team, but they basically started getting the 40K design team to do the Forge World rules. I think they got it out of the way early in the edition because they're not going to look at it again. Like that's just
I don't think we're going to get. I mean, we could get some just points updates in chapter proof, but I don't think we're going to get any updated Forge World rules.
The rules
and they
and
did
models,
the same for Age, right? We never got updated rules throughout the entire.
Exactly. So I think they're just going to be whatever you got. If it has good rules, you're really lucky. If it doesn't, which is still a significant portion of Forge World, you're out of luck for the entire edition, which is unfortunate. But there's just too many models in the game right now, and that's why when you talk about balance, it's never going to be a perfect balanced game. Every unit's never going to be viable at the same time. You want every single codex to come out that has like 3 or 4 different builds, and in those builds you could see a reason for fitting in any different unit. So maybe the Crutox Riders from Tau only fit into this one particular build, but at least they fit into that build, and they're not completely pointless like they are now. So,
yeah, I'd much always rather also have like good internal balance than external balance. Like even if my army isn't that great in the grand scheme, I'd love to be able to take many different armies of similar power level within the book, even if they're all not like none of them are specific, like super good. I don't like it when an army is not only not great in the like against other books, but also within its own book, there's very few kind of builds. That just feels like kind of a double whammy.
Yeah, like Tau, where most of the vehicles are just a trash fire and have been for a while. There's no reason for it. You were building battle suits and drones for so long.
And there's like even NIDS too. There's like so many units that you don't take. For a lot of chaos, to be honest, there's a lot of units that just don't ever see play. Demons obviously as well. Like they have a one strong build in the meta, and then the rest is either kind of just accessories or window dressing for different armies.
They just need to take it very seriously. Like, this unit needs to have a particular role, and it needs to do that role well. Do that for every single model.
You can always move to the UK. They're hiring for a 40k lead there, Richard.
I don't want to work in their corporate culture, which seems to be the major hindrance.
Yeah,
There's a lot of old school people there that don't really believe in modern game design, which is unfortunate. So hopefully they eventually get weeded out.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you have any kind of, I guess, speculation on like why do you think they advertise all those positions? Do you think they're just adding, or do you think it's like they're reshuffling?
I think they're just adding positions. They want to.
Yeah.
I genuinely do think they know how important the rules are to the game overall and people's enjoyment of it. It's just a slow process to getting them to think about active game balancing and the competitive side of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because like I feel like for such a company that makes, I think their market cap's like 4 billion euros or something like that. Some crazy amount. Like they're one of the largest companies in the UK stock exchange.
Yeah.
It just feels like sometimes their rules writing is very amateurish in a lot of ways. But with that said, obviously I still love the game and I still enjoy it a lot. So I just think like, it's like I'm like disappointed dad, like you have your kid, that they have so much potential to like excel. You still love them, but you just want them to do better,
The thing is, like, the Drukhari rules are great. That's just an amazing book with tons of flavor. Pretty much every unit has used. Yeah, exactly. It's you start out with that as the model, and you do it for every book. You don't start out with a different model and switch 5 books into the edition. So
yeah,
that's the
issue. Every edition, though, it always feels
every
like
time.
You see like a bit of a shift.
It's always Eldar. It's always Eldar.
Always Eldar having to ruin things for everyone.
John would say so.
Well, I mean, you can't have an edition where all the Eldar books are bad. So in every edition, there has to be at least one broken Eldar book, whether it's Craft Worlds, Yunari, or Drukhari.
Usually it's Craft Worlds, so gosh, we were waiting for that to hit. I hope they give us some time.
I got it. If this is what Drukhari is Craft Worlds going to be even worse?
It almost always is. Well, hopefully it's not fire spam though. I want to at least interact with Eldar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad things like fire spam are not that great anymore, although they're still pretty good.
The AdMech ones are very good, but outside of that, like occasionally you'll see a flyer or two, but really only the AdMech ones, and that's because they're costed at a price point where you could actually see running multiple of them. Like the Drukhari bomber is 200 points. And the Dark Tower bombers, the Void Raven's 200 points. Those
bombs are good though, man. Those bombs are scary.
They are scary. A bunch of D6 mortals coming at you.
It's like 4+. Oh, your character dies.
Yeah, I'd
take D6 mortals. Like it's not even like -1 for characters. It's just like nope, 4+ doesn't care what you are.
So that and the Dark Angel bombers are very strong, but they're 210 points each. So I know John wanted to run 3 of them and just nuke people's characters all game. They also have a ton of firepower too. So, but they've priced those things if they have very good guns and they have additional special rules. They price them pretty high up there. So that's why we're not seeing them as much. But I don't want to see tons and tons of flyers, even though I like running a bunch of.
No, I just honestly I played my Terminus S list against a AdMech list with 6 flyers recently, and it's just like I get. It just was so unattractive because my army's all infantry with no shooting, and his army's 6 flyers. So just like runs flyers up, parks them in front of my army, 6 flyers, literally a wall of flyers, and I'm like, cool, GG. Like there's not even a point playing this game. I have 4-inch movement poxwalkers that like literally cannot do anything, and I'm just like, this is not even like a game. Like this is not fun, And I can't charge your flyers. I can't hurt them. So it's just not a fun, the way that they're built into the game. Well, I never liked the idea of flyers. I always thought it just didn't make sense. Like that flyers flyers should be something where it's like, I paid for a flyer and once per turn I get to pick a unit that gets bombed from like 50, 70,000 feet. And I just don't even have a model. It's just like a stratagem basically. Like flyers are just a stratagem that I use. you know? Because it's
Yeah.
like, why would flyers stop in the middle of a tiny battlefield to get shot? Like, they move at supersonic speeds.
The
You know what I'm
hover,
saying?
yeah, like most of them should be just hover jets.
Yeah, but like Eldar flyers are like literally they fly in space.
Yeah,
So like, how slow are these things going? You know?
but they're a LATOC.
I guess so. But I mean, the models are cool. Planes
Yeah.
are cool.
They are cool. I'm painting an AdMech flyer right now, my 4th one overall. So
Yeah.
I
Just
do
don't play against Terminus Est.
have.
It's not fun.
Mark also tried the Terminus Est.
It's just like, I wish if Terminus Est was anything like Cult of Strife, I'd have been stoked. If it was like a detachment of Terminus Est, I'd be like, sweet.
Yeah. It's the same thing with the AdMech detachment where you can get the Castle robots and stuff with -1 damage and Cataphron
Yeah.
features. The amount of restrictions that they threw onto that is, no Skitarii units. Well, that's almost every single one of the best units in the entire book. I can't take if
Yeah.
you want these rules.
You want to hear the like saddest, funniest thing about the? Or sorry, go ahead and finish what you're saying, and then I'll.
No, you're good.
I'll tell you my
Go on.
sad. So like the keywords in Death Guard are just make absolutely no sense. So first of all of the Legion traits are keyed off Bubotic Astartes, but like the only thing that's like Poxwalkers is not Bubotic Astartes, so like 90% of the stuff doesn't work on them. And then none of the demon engines are Bubotic Astartes. Only Hellbrutes and Land Raiders are Bubotic Astartes. So they don't even get the Legion trait of being able to fire in combat. So that makes no sense. Second, in the Terminus Est, you get a special stratagem to deep strike. Guess what? Bubotic Astartes. So they're like, take lots of Poxwalkers and we'll let you deep strike them. Except you can't. And because of the way that it's worded, you can't just regular strategic reserve them for 1 CP. You have to pay the 2 CP because no matter what, in a Terminus S list, to strategic reserve anything costs an extra CP, even if it doesn't get the benefit of coming in 9 inches away because they're not Bubotic Astartes. So they're like, take 200 Poxwalkers that you can't even fit on your board, and then deep strike them each for 2 CP, and then they still just come in normally because they're not actually Bubotic Astartes. So it's like, guys, like, and so I look at that, like that whole system of like exclusion, I guess, and then I look at Drukhari and I'm like, guys, like, how is it that like they can literally have characters from other factions, like covens and like cults in the same detachments with no downside, and I don't even get to like have Legion traits on my vehicles?
It's the same thing with Necrons, though. Is like they have an overly restrictive command protocols. You had to decide them before the game. You had to predict when you were going to need each of these fairly mediocre rules on your army, and you also have to have a character nearby, and your army has to be led by a lord. It's like, we'll just throw every restriction on your main faction rule. Cool, awesome, awesome. Drukhari, you just get stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry about those restrictions. Yeah, don't worry about them. We got you.
You don't need that. Well, that was an earlier design phase. Well, this is not for the real.
And here's extra 2 CP just because for kicks.
Oh, look at that, Corey. How you doing? He came in 15th at Dallas with his Necrons. Didn't bring the Tesseract Vault, but you should have. Are you serious? You really would have preferred having a Tesseract Vault there? I'm interested to hear how you thought that would have helped your list. But glad that you did so well. Top 15, no surprise with how well you've been doing with Necrons overall, and really happy for you. Well done out there. What did you end up losing to, by chance?
Drukhari. I'm just a guess.
It might be Drukhari, but Necrons they could beat most factions in the game, but they could also lose to most factions.
Yeah.
Hilariously, Necrons have an awful matchup into Grey Knights and Tau, 2 armies that you rarely see. At least the Tau list that I run. The Flying Eldar Circus is broken. The Flying AdMech Circus is perfectly okay and balanced. It's perfectly okay and balanced. Don't worry about it. It's just not -2 to hit unless you run Styges and you have pluses to hit, and then that matters. But
I don't think. Am I wrong? But did the AdMech flyers all have invulns, built-in invulns?
No, they do not have invulns, and they only have 10 wounds. So they're quite a bit easier to kill overall if you have dedicated anti-tank. The only defensive buffs is they're -1 to hit from airborne, and if they have Shroud Song.
They get cover, right?
Yeah, they count as a cover, so they have a 2-up armor basically if Shroud Song's active.
That's nice. It's nice that your fires get cover.
I'm hoping. I cannot wait to see what new Canticles are, because most of them are garbage, especially Litany of the Electromancer. I'm hoping that the Forge World specific ones still exist. But I imagine those Warlord traits, like Divinations of the Magos, are just gone. Or they're pick a core unit within 6 or whatever. So I think
Yeah,
Admech
I
will
mean,
get toned down in places.
Do you think any kind of predicted nerfs? Because
Yeah.
like I feel like obviously the core, just even the introduction of core, obviously changes a lot. But I kind of feel like a lot of stuff is going to get core. Like I imagine all the Castellan robots are going to get core. Or sorry, the little tracked guys are those Castellan robots?
Cataphront Breachers and
Catapult
Destroyers.
robots. I was getting confused. I assume those guys will get core probably, and like obviously all the infantry will get core. But outside of that, like I can't imagine there's a ton that's going to be core. Like none of the vehicles or anything like that, right?
I imagine the Skitarii stuff will all be core if they're going to introduce core for Admech, and then they would make it so the Cult Mechanicus things, like the priests and the Castellan robots, those don't get it. I could see something like that happening, but
Yeah.
honestly, I would hope they do what they didn't do for Necrons, which is if you're going to make core restrictive in Admech, give relics, warlord trade, stratagems, whatever, to help give core to different things, so they can benefit from the better rules in the book.
You know, it's not core Poxwalkers.
Yeah, Poxwalkers, all the destroyer stuff the Necrons have and had been using for a while, all that stuff is pretty much garbage, especially the shooting destroyers, because it doesn't get most of the best rules in the Necron book. Pretty much it's warriors get all the best rules, and then if you're a vehicle, fortunately you have quantum shielding. Outside of that, you're kind of out of luck, unfortunately. So, at least Canoptic stuff get a couple buffs here and there, but destroyers are pretty much left out in the cold, and they're some of the coolest models in the whole line. How are Grey Knights versus Drukhari? I think Grey Knights can put out a tremendous amount of damage, especially out of line of sight. The Astral Aim unit, plus having something like an Interceptor unit pop out, shoot, and then jump back in a Rhino, that is very powerful and difficult for Drukhari to deal with. So I think Grey Knights actually have a reasonable matchup. They can pump out tons of mortal wounds, and they can shoot in the psychic phase, then continue smiting, and then go into their shooting phase. So they can do damage all sorts of different ways. They also have Gate of Infinity, so Drukhari has to keep screening. They have ways to reroll wounds against vehicles. And they have some very nice defensive buffs, like +1 to their invulns, -1 to wounds. That's all very powerful as we're seeing these Drukhari armies that are very MSU, and so they're not typically sending giant bricks of things at you. Like, they're not sending 9, 10 incubi at you all at once. So they're very unlikely to pick up some of your bigger squads. So I think overall Grey Knights actually have a reasonable matchup. You need enough things to screen the Drukhari. So this is where units like Servitors come in, because you just screen your big Terminator brick so that they have to make a much longer charge around the side. And it has to be with a Witch Cult unit, otherwise Astral Aim, ignoring line of sight, and having Drago there for full rerolls. You'll actually just kill 5 of whatever.
Does Astral Aim work for Overwatch?
Yeah, it lasts until your next
amazing.
psychic phase. Yeah, so it ignores
That's
cover
amazing.
line of sight. You won't have
realize
all the
that.
buffs, because I don't believe you can use... You might actually be able to use Cybolt in Overwatch. I'm not sure. I'd have to check that again. I've never done that. But things like Purgation Squads, which have 24 silencer shots, they're 1 CP strat is to Overwatch on 4s. So 1 CP Overwatch, 1 CP Overwatch on 4s. If they're trying to multi-charge your main castle and a Purgation Squad, the Purgation Squad just picks something up for free. Not for free, but 2 CP, but still. I think Grey Knights have really, really powerful tools into Drukhari. They still don't have a lot of stuff, though, and that's... Being able to defend your objectives is hard, and that's why I much prefer Terminators over Paladins, because at least you OPSEC your home objective.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with Drukhari. It's like, there's so many waves, and it's like, first, second wave you can kind of usually fight off, and then by the time, like, they're really good late game, I find. They start to kind of just take over just because they still usually have so much left. So they're able to kind of send you, trade up, and then by the time their third wave comes, they've traded up and killed a lot of the army, and you just don't have enough gas left,
Yeah, because they can do killing and OBSEC your home objective at the same time, or kill whatever units are on it.
Yep.
So
These units are their troops. Like, that's the crazy part.
Yep.
That
really
whereas
helps
for most armies, that's not the case.
Yeah, most of the time it's your trash is your troops, and they're just there to hold your own objectives and deny primary points on your opponents if you have fast transports. I think if you want to be able to beat Drukhari now, you have to be able to contest their own objectives, the ones that they're holding. You have to be able to take them off it. So you need multiple instances of activations. That's why you saw Mark Hurdle doing so well with the Electric Priests, because they have the old 3 CP fight twice. So even if they don't end their first activation, you can do War Room Trickery. You go in, you fight, you declare 2 units, go in, pile out of combat of the second one that you declared, so it won't get to activate. Kill the first thing, and then wait till the end of the fight phase. 3 CP activate into the other unit you charged. So stuff like that, which we teach all the time in the War Room, that kind of old fight twice is actually really powerful against armies like Drukhari. Tyranids have it, etc.
We're seeing a lot less of that in the game. It seems like they're really taking the axe to a lot of the fight twice strats. So I'm curious to see if they still get that, or they're limiting them quite a bit. So it's like just maybe 1 unit in your army can do it. So I'll be curious to see if we still see that in the new book.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have a $5 super chat from Sleepy Gary. Hey Richard, what's your opinion on the heavy broadside list that got 30th at Dallas versus the list similar to what you ran in the House RTT that got second? I am not the biggest fan of broadsides. The lack of mobility and the inability to fly, so if the broadsides get wrapped or trapped against a wall or whatever, you're not going to desperate break out your broadside unit. It's too risky. And even if you do, if they wrap you with a unit that has a decent amount of models, you won't be able to fall back more than an inch away, and so you just lose the broadsides anyway. That's not really the trade you can make. Things like 10 Witches come in and do that to you. Because obviously they ignore Overwatch with Cult of Strife. So I think that list just doesn't have the mobility to play the mission. It's trying to table you. That's just not going to work against a lot of armies, especially armies that have tons of units all over the board and fast units that can get on top of you. So I much prefer my list, and it's cool that he got 30th. Like, well done. But I think if you want to get like top 20, top 10 with Tau, you need a much more mobile list, a list that plays the mission and can deny your opponent's primary points. That's really the key with Tau. Is Tau can pick secondaries where they don't have to interact with your opponent. You don't really pick any kill secondaries unless they're easy. So you pick things like Engage, While We Stand, and an action secondary like Scramblers or Banners. And you just rack up the points. In the meanwhile, you're denying your opponent's primary with Breacher Squads and Devilfish. That's how Tau plays. And the broadside list doesn't play like that at all. So I think it'll struggle at the top tables. And as you saw, 30th is great at a like 170, 180 person event. But if you're trying to win the event, I think you have to run something more similar to my event. Obviously, you're still playing Tau, so it's not easy at all. But I think that gives you the best chance, certainly in this meta. What list am I playing tomorrow? I am playing a custom dynasty list with 80 warriors, 3 20 mans, and then 2 10 mans in Ghost Arcs. And then I'm running some various tanks, some Ghost Arcs, and some Annihilation Barges. And then just little mission playing stuff like the Hexmark Destroyer, Crypto Thralls, etc., Scarabs. And I'm just going to try and OBSEC Nick's objectives away and make it so he can't deny me primary points, because my warriors count as 2 OBSEC models. So even if there's 5 models on the objective, I still count as having 10 there for the purposes of scoring. I think Drukhari struggle against that because they don't have, the list that we're seeing don't have great tools for just picking up a 20-man warrior brick. So they'll kill a bunch of models, and then I'll reanimate and just put more models back on my home objective or back onto their objective. Stuff like that. So we're going to see how it works. And that's tomorrow on YouTube, 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Nice.
Not sure if you guys answered this already, but what is the most competitive form of Chaos at the moment, considering Drukhari? Jim, what do you think?
I mean, I think right now, like, there are 2 kind of lists that I would look at are, like, if you're going to run Death Guard, like, say you want to try to keep some of the newer stuff, so Volca Contemptors do really well. I think, like, actually Death Guard shooting, like, 3 Volca Contemptors with the Tallyman and, like, a few other small things, and then souped in with, like, some Emperor's Children or Demons to add some, like horrors, greater demons, that kind of stuff. Like a really strong shooting base. Maybe like I actually been trying to write a list with like 2 Contemptors, 2 PBCs, 2 to 3 PBCs that kind of sit on the backfield from Death Guard, and then the rest like either Emperor's Children or like demons, so that I have basically like a really strong shooting base from the Death Guard, and I can maybe babysit them with a Nurgle character that's going to give me like a Nurgle Demon Prince or something that'll give me reroll 1s on the PBCs and the vehicles, because that still works on the demon engines. So that could be a strong list. Obviously, look at some of Mark's lists, which are very technical, hard lists to play, but they are quite strong because they just have so many tools. But yeah, I mean, as I said, like there's not. I think there's some play with like Thousand Suns Cult of Duplicity. I think could be good against some Drukhari, especially like teleporting rubrics, popping around, shooting, and then like disappearing again. Could have a lot of play as well. So I just think I don't think there's any sort of pure chaos faction that has all the tools, but I think the strength of the chaos faction right now is that you can bring in a lot of different. You basically have access to four codexes to bring in tools to kind of beat Drukhari. So I think you really need to take advantage of that in order to build a kind of combined arms list that is going to be able to take them out. So
yeah, those lists all sound fairly interesting. I agree with you on the pink horrors. That's very similar to 20 warriors, especially if you have summoning points. That's not easy for armies like Drukhari to deal with. And they also have the advantage of being able to obsec their home objectives, because if they're leaving witches or whatever or Cabalites on their objectives to have obsec there, you then get this crazy volume of fire from the pink horse to just pick them up, and then you obsec the objective anyway. So they're sitting in their transports, which means just one model on the objective from the pink horror unit gets you there, gets you to control.
Yeah,
deny the points.
And you can actually. I know this is like weird, but you can start with blue horrors. You can take like 10-man blue horror units, and which is lots of brimstone splits, and use those as like screening. So like, or even just brimstone horror units. Those are still viable units to take, right? So you can kind of spam a lot of like really cheap stuff. You can even summon cheap units to throw in front of like their witches, because again, a lot of their like infantry doesn't fly. So if you summon a unit, you can really kind of slow them down. And then obviously with splits, you can create all sorts of shenanigans with the way that like. Currently you're allowed to place splits. So I think there's some like, again, it more technical, like there is no like brute force list against Drukhari. It's going to be a lot about like just like a lot of jank, I guess. So
yeah, you need at least some tricks. Having powerful heroic interventions is something.
At least Nurgle, man. Apparently those are Nick's pain.
Yeah, Custodes as well. They have some tricky strats. Being able to have different interrupts as well. Like Custodes are an army that, even though they're elite, they have a lot of tricks like Tanglefoot and the ability to interrupt for 1 CP plus the 2 CP generic interrupt. Doing things like that, it can actually matter a lot against an army like Drukhari. My Hexmark Destroyer did work in the tournament. I'm running him tomorrow. He has not... He did good in the one game I played against Tyrannus, but outside of that, I played him mostly against elite armies, where he's pretty much pointless, other than getting you an engage in all front point or just finishing off scramblers or something for you. So he hasn't been a superstar for me, but if I ever play against other Horde armies, he'll be a hero. Just come here to pay my respects to Mark Hurdle and his performance on the weekend. What a threat. He played amazingly all weekend. Was really impressed with how he was playing. Did help that he went first with that Stygies list, but the way he moved the army, his target priority, all of it was excellent. He was also a really great sportsman on those stream games, so really impressed with Mark Hurdle, that is. What do you think about running Flamer Plagueburst Crawlers again, Jim?
I like them. I think they're actually got some play. Play them super aggressive against Drukhari. Just move them off the board, get in their face, start flaming stuff. I think that there's actually lots of play there. We use the, but again, you still need something to pop the transports is the thing, right? So if you can pop those transports, spill out all the juice and the good sweet elves inside, sweet tasting elves, and then back them up with PVCs. That's what I was thinking about the like the Volkites. Using your Volkites to pop transports, and then using PVCs kind of up in the midfield to flame kind of anything that kind of comes out. PVCs are still pretty hard to kill, although, mass Dark Lances do a number on them. But they do a number on anything, so. And then blowing them up in the middle of the army when they finally do die.
Yeah, auto explosions is one of the things that really helped Mark Hurdle against Nick's Drukhari list. He was able to auto explode and completely flip an objective score.
Yeah, because he can do that to all the vehicles?
Yeah, with the AdMech vehicles, 1 CP.
That's
it's a great strat to have. Necrons also have it. Try Custom Dynasty, unyielding and pregame move on your Silvertide list. Pretty strong. I'll consider it. I like double obsec just because it means if they end up sending a larger a larger squad and still don't wipe the warrior unit, it only takes me like 5 models to put back on the objective in reanimations to control it. So maybe that's not worth it enough. Maybe it's better to go for one of the other buffs on the warriors. But I definitely considered some other ones. Is Farsight becoming a staple now? Commander Farsight himself or Farsight Enclaves? I think Farsight Enclaves has been the best playstyle for Tau since the Psychic Awakening book came out last year in like March. I never got the chance to run it at a tournament because COVID happened, but I was planning to attend to Adepticon, and Nick was in a tizzy trying to come up with ways to counter the list that I had built. And he was failing at it, so that was obviously the end of 8th edition. I still think Farsight Enclaves is by far the best playstyle in 9th edition. Marker Lights are absolute trash fires, and so having a built-in set of army detachment rules that make up for Marker Lights, it's a huge deal. I also think that the extra stratagems that they get and their buffs to crisis suits are outstanding value for Tau. If I use 2 interrupt strats, does that mean I fight back-to-back when I interrupt? Yep, it does indeed. You resolve one strat after another. That rarely comes up, but yes, it is definitely possible. John has talked about doing it with Custodes, but I don't know if it's come up in an actual game. Hey, Jim, how would you run a Chaos Space Marine army right now not using Death Guard? Vanilla Chaos Space Marines.
Do I get to use the Faith and Fury cults?
Yeah, I assume so.
I'd probably do a mix of Emperor's Children as a advanced threat with Terminators, Noise Marines, and then I would have maybe a base of like Iron Warrior Decimators, or Iron Warrior Obliterators or Decimators, or Alpha Legion. I've been looking at actually some of the Alpha Legion stuff lately, and one of the things I really like is I know snipers are kind of out of vogue, but there's a combo where you can basically do an automatic hitting combi plasma on a Terminator model. So you can basically have 2 combi plasma shots that auto hit and that snipes. So I thought that would be really cool to combo with some Alpha Legion Terminators, Obliterators. I've been looking at Obliterators again because I was like, they're actually out a pretty good profile to pop Raiders, especially if they're shooting twice. So that was something that I've been looking at. I do like Decimators, especially all the mortal wounds. Again, if you can get within range of those Raiders, they're gonna kill Raiders really quickly. So, 3 Decimators with a Iron Warriors Warlord with the exploding 6 to hit, and then the rerolling 1s to wound, I believe, from +1 to hit also from a Lord Scordant. Basically creating like a little fire base with Decimators, and then the rest in Emperor's Children to kind of throw forward and kind of get in the face and be like a distant threat.
Obliterators are back. You heard it here first. Obliterators.
Hey man, they're actually like a unit of 3 is only 310 points. They're pretty strong. They do basically die instantly to Dark Lances, but that's where things like Conceal comes in, right? Or the Iron Warrior strat that lets you let them shoot cultists. And Drukhari don't have a ton of range shooting. Yeah. Like they obviously do have like Cablites in Venoms and stuff, or sorry, in Raiders with like Splinter, but we're not seeing the level of chaff clearing guns as we used to, because we're seeing a lot of racks with liquefiers, and we're also seeing which are shorter range, 12 inches, which is not the end of the world. And then we're seeing, maybe 1 to 3 units of Cabalites, including a True Burn unit. So you're only talking, 20 to 30 Splinter Rifle shots a turn from most Drukhari lists that I've seen, which is not a ton. And Dark Lances obviously don't kill vehicles. Kill cultists. So, I mean, they kill cultists, but who cares? So I think a unit where there's like a decent amount of cultists, Obliterators, Decimators, and then some Emperor's Children jank in there to kind of reach out and touch, I think could be pretty solid. But again, you can't have it all, because that's like 7,000 points I just described. So
yeah, and it goes back to that original question of, does tailoring that hard against Drukhari weaken you against other factions?
Right. I actually don't think it's the worst list in general. I just think you just gotta it's just like a cagey list. Like, you gotta be really careful how you play it, because if someone gets a charge in on your Decimators, they're not super resilient. And if they get a bad angle and pop 2 Decimators in a turn, that's a huge loss in points.
How many points is a Decimator?
I think they're like 170 or 190 with soul burners, which are the mortal wound guns.
The other reason that you're not seeing bodyguards is sniping as much is because the new bodyguard rule basically shuts it down completely, where you can't even target them in shooting. So with armies like Dark Angels,
have that something.
It's what John Lennon and Nick Nanavati were running the court of the Archons with the Sliths and the Urgles. So the Sliths are the bodyguard that give you access.
They just those for while we send we fight targets because they're
also great while we stands because they're just a ton of. Why those models are 3 wounds, I have no idea. And have 5 of Feel No Pain. It just boggles the mind for how cheap they are. But that's just what happened. I don't know how they probably just didn't playtest. They were like, the Cordal Archon hasn't been seen in a while.
So we'll just like make them better and then not really think about it.
Yeah, nobody has played these models in a long time. Just get them out there. 5 of Feel No Pain. We're not giving it to anything else in the game, just 5 of Feel No Pain though. So. Commander Foresight for double fallback and shoot, is he a must-have now? I don't think he's a must-have. I've been playing lists with just a different buff commander who gives off command and control node to my crisis unit. But if you want to run Farsight, you can. I think if you run a bunch of Remora drones, you run a commander with a drone controller instead as the buff commander. But if you're not running a bunch of Remoras, then Farsight fits in there really naturally. For Slanesh, would you lean more towards Terminators or the Noise Marines?
Both. I think they both have their places. The Noise Marines being able to shoot on death, and then obviously just having a lot of guns and being a little cheaper, I think are super strong. And then I think the Terminators coming out of Deep Strike, especially if you have combat drugs, they can be super, super nasty. Like, they pick up a lot.
Claws.
Lightning Claws, yeah. No Chainswords, unfortunately, so not good against your party. But yeah, and then also just like a unit of Terminators dropping down, shooting multi-meltas, autocannons, bolters, and then shooting twice, charging in. You can basically pick up 3 units in a turn. You can shoot twice, pick up 2, and then charge a 3rd one. So they do have a lot of play, you know?
Mark has actually gone away from the Terminators and his Emperor's Children. And instead, he just thinks they don't trade efficient enough into Drukhari. So he's going for adding a Plague Burst Crawler and some other jank stuff in his list. I think it was Mutilators. He's going for Mutilators.
I was looking at those too because I was like, this sounds like a Mark Perry unit. But they're just, the problem is like, yeah, they drop down, but like their attacks it feels too random.
He feels that, they're reasonable enough that they could kill a little 5-man unit, no problem, and use Honor of the Prince charges to get onto objectives and be annoying. But they do it for a lot cheaper than the Terminators, where you want to spend...
Like something like that?
Something like that, yeah. I don't remember exactly.
I like those units. I like those like forgotten units that with like a stratagem actually become not bad.
And Honor the Prince is one of the best strats in the game.
I think so. I'm worried we're gonna lose it. So that's pessimist to me. I'm like, all right, well, it's definitely gonna get nerfed.
It's too good. Chaos can't have that.
Yeah, that's right.
What's Jim doing with his custom Space Marine chapter? I saw in Play on Tabletop. Are they seeing any action these days or back on the shelf in favor of Chaos?
Well, I actually just finished painting. Doing a YouTube painting video for so I have a YouTube channel called Duplicity Paint Studio. Make sure to check it out. Sorry to steal your channel and shamelessly plug, but I'm doing hobby content, so YouTube videos and just like podcasts and stuff. So make sure to check it out. But I just finished a 2-part series on how to paint Soul Drinkers. So I painted this Soul Drink Eradicator 2 parts. I'm basically, now that I'm done my Death Guard, I'm going to be going back to my Space Marines. Not necessarily because I want to play them, but just because I want to actually just finish. Like I have no Chaos pile of shame. All my Chaos is painted at this point, except this like Demon Prince that I'm giving away. So I'm kind of trying to just get through my pile of shame at this point, and that includes 3 sets of Indomitus for my Soul Drinkers, which I've sold some of because I was like, okay, do I actually need 30 Assault Intercessors? Probably not, given that I have 60 regular Intercessors. Thanks Adepticon for not letting me ever play that list either. So that's kind of my plan with it. I'm going to keep it. And I'll add to it. I'm just not interested in playing Marines right now. I feel like I'd rather focus on Chaos and that. But I'm going to have a Marine list because it's always good to have a Marine list in your back pocket. So.
Yeah, you never know when the next
Also,
Marine rule set
I am
is around the
actually.
corner.
I just recorded another battle report with Play on Tabletop about 3 weeks ago. So I'll be doing. That'll be out probably closer to the end of May, and that is with my Death Guard. And I did the Death Guard Emperor's Children army against Dark Angels, and I also did an army showcase. So I pulled all 30,000 points of my Chaos out, set it up, did like a full army showcase. So I'm really excited for you guys to see that. So hopefully that comes out soon, and you guys can check that out.
How close are you to those guys?
Like an hour, like 45 minutes.
Okay. Did they come to you?
Yeah, I'm in downtown Vancouver. They're in like Port Moody, which is like a 35-minute drive without traffic. So they have I went out to their studio and stuff. So
You brought all 30,000 points of chaos up there?
yeah, it was 1 battle pack air, 4.5 battle foam or battle pack 720s, which are like the next largest, and then 2 cardboard boxes worth of stuff. It filled an entire 6x4 table with 0 space. There's like I literally couldn't fit any more models. So I think it was around 700 models when I did the final count. So I'm excited for you guys to see it. I posted a few photos of like a preview on my Instagram, but yeah, they obviously I was just with it was like grainy potato cam cell phone pics. So when the actual video comes out, I'm really excited. That was actually I was more looking forward to the army showcase than the actual game because I've never actually pulled out all my chaos and had it like in front of me painted at once. And so just seeing everything fully arrayed, like on a table, fully painted, it was like I was like such a happy camper. I was like so happy. And then putting it away I was absolutely miserable. Because it took me like 2.5 hours to put away before, and this is all before the game. So like I spent 3 hours just packing and unpacking armies. I'm excited for you guys to see it. So
Did they need you brain dead before the game so it would be a fair one?
yeah, you know what's funny? Like I've been playing a lot of TTS obviously because I haven't had a chance to play in real life a lot, but it's I forget how different it is to play real life games than digital. Like it's just a totally different vibe. But no, it was fine. It was a fun game. I'm not going to spoil anything obviously because they would be really mad at me. But so you'll have to check it out on their channel when it's up. And I'm also going to be doing a how to paint Death Guard video on my channel as well. That's the next series I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be basically matching the scheme of my current Death Guard army, and I'll be doing a set of videos for that as well. So if you guys are interested in that, check out my channel. Shameless plug.
No, you plug away. Let's see. My Void Dragon got into 18 Smasher Guns with the GT, killed 15 of them, 2 Grout Mega Tanks, and a War Boss and Bike. That goes back to like those old Halo things where it was like running, it was a killing spree, buck wild, and running riot. He was on a heck of a streak. I assume he just I actually quite like the Void Dragon against a vehicle heavy meta. He just shouldn't be 350 points. He's too many points for that. And obviously Admech is one of those armies that can just kill him in one turn. So I'd be very nervous running him into Admech, like any of the Catan. Let's see. Oh, look, it's the 2 guys who broke 8th edition. You 2 are responsible for 3 of my 4 least favorite 8th edition lists to play against. Drone Spam, Plague Bearer Spam, Leviathan. You're welcome, Lyle.
To be fair, though, I don't think many people played against Leviathan for a very long time. It was a short list.
Fortunately.
Thankfully. And so that's why I actually have a lot of hope, at least, for Drukhari, because I feel like once GW, and I know Mike Brandt's aware, like he's in some of the underground 40k groups that I belong to, and he's acknowledged as much that they've seen the data, and so I know that there is a line of this info getting back to GW, and I'm just hoping that they do take action because for the health of the game and for the health of the player base, and yeah, so I'm not too stressed if in a year from now everyone's just playing Drukhari and Admech and we're all just like, praise be the new Omnissiah and slave masters, and that's the meta, then yeah, I'll probably have a lot more to say. But yeah, I mean, given everything that's happening right now in the world, like even the UK is still not fully open, so just try to give them a little bit of slack. And I know that sounds weird coming from me because I'm usually one of the GW's biggest lovers and haters. So,
but I agree. Like they definitely know that this is a thing. Peter the Falcon has been incessantly sending them the stats each weekend since the book has been been released and played.
What would we do without the Falcon?
Yeah, like he's sending truckloads of data to them, and they're going to have enough information to make a reasonable decision on what should change.
Yeah.
I imagine they are just deciding what they should change and how much at once, which is a genuine question.
Yeah. I think it's weird too, because I feel like for AOS, they definitely don't like. There's a lot of things I like about AOS, but their armulus balance is way more out of skew than 40k. Sounds like.
Yeah, I think overall the game is just, I wouldn't say less competitive. It's less competitive minded than 40k, even though they're very good competitive players for Age of Sigmar. I
have been thinking hard. They obviously previewed some of the new Vampire Count stuff on. I'm going to call them Vampire Counts, even though they're not called that, because I'm a fantasy player. But they did preview some of that today on their Warhammer Fest, so looks pretty cool. I'm thinking very hard about starting an army. Whether I'll actually ever play AOS or not is, another story. But I think they'd be enjoyable to play.
Does the double turn still exist?
Yeah, that's like the thing. But AOS 3 is coming out, and there's rumors that it's going to get adjustments, and so there might be enough adjustment where I'm like, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's also that mortal wounds are off the chart in Age of Sigmar, right?
Well, that, and also like damage carries over. Like if you have 2 damage weapons, like it's just everything like spill over. There's a lot of like very weird rules. Like weapons have distances, so like you have like spears that like have a 2-inch range. So you can like attack from 2 inches rather than it just being like half an inch of half an inch, like in 40k. Depends on your weapon in AOS. Like how far you can like fight through, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool, but
I have not had the chance to play, so I don't want to talk too much.
I've played a single game, to be honest. I'm just thinking about it. I always think about it a lot. Never actually do anything.
I hope Warhammer Fest reveals will be better for 40k than it was for Age of Sigmar. It was a giant waste of time watching today. They fluff up those previews so much.
Yeah, we'll see. They're doing 2 reveals, which gives me hope. I just hope it's not like, hey, here's a few more Sisters models.
Well, remember, wasn't it last year when it was supposed to be an Adepticon was supposed to happen, got canceled, and they still wanted to do the preview, and they, once again, the biggest preview of all time, whatever, all this big language about it, and then it was just a couple models that they revealed, like barely anything. Didn't that happen? There's just like some space
like
models.
That. Well, originally they were supposed to reveal 40k 8th, 9th edition, sorry, because I actually got my Adepticon gift package, which was the new Necron and the new Assault Intercessor that they were going to give out at Adepticon, because at the 2019, the one previous, they gave out like the Sister of Battle, like the free Sister of Battle, I think, or maybe that was Nova, I can't remember. But anyways, they were planning to announce 9th edition there, and then obviously they canceled that. So,
how do I feel about Anshi? Anshi is a boss. He is the best ethereal. If you're taking an ethereal, hopefully you have a viewer-led detachment so that you can take Anshi. But if I would to take one of them, it would be Anshi. But I was not impressed by the viewer-led detachment that I ran it a couple times. I just don't think that CP spent on the breachers is that useful. I think you get much better value putting that CP into commanders and the crisis unit. So any CP not spent on them has to be absolutely critical to winning the game. And breachers shooting is not usually that. So I've gone away and back to pure Farsight Enclaves. So no more Anshi in the list. They always overhype their reveals. You expect some hype, but like the biggest reveal of all time, maybe we shouldn't use that excessive amount of that hyperbole. Maybe tone it down just slightly.
They definitely go a little bit too much with the hyperbole for sure.
Yeah, but I'm excited. There's 2 40k days. It's tomorrow and Friday, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think Saturday will be AOS 3. I guess.
Is Age of Sigmar at the end?
Yeah, I think it'll be Age of Sigmar 3 announcement, because that's kind of the big rumor right now.
Okay. They've released a whole bunch of new factions and are releasing more, so it would make sense to have.
Well, and the Broken Realms is basically like End Times, and the Kragnos is like the 4th book. So I assume once it's done, it's like, all right, the realms are broken. Here's your new Age of Sigmar. We're going back to square bases.
You got to keep breaking the realms. Where's my Tomb Kings? Where are Tomb Kings?
Break them open and get me some Tomb Kings.
Cetra must be back. He's imperishable.
That's right.
You ever play Warhammer Total War?
Yep, I've played the first version. I guess I never ended up getting sequels just because
the sequel's so good.
But I don't know. I feel like it got very kind of repetitive. I like to always play my battles, and it can get very tiring if you're not simming the battles.
Yeah, I play all of them too. But there's a real skill in winning them at the hard difficulty.
I think they announced some Super Collector's Edition coming out soon, so I'll probably pick it up with the Legendary Edition with all of them combined. Essentially,
yeah, because Warhammer 3 is coming out, Total War. Which I cannot wait for. Haven't seen a Dark Angels list win a GT yet. Is there a reason why? Personally think no one has run a fully optimized list. What would the list look like? That's really a John Lennon question. He spent the most time with the book. And frankly, they just have a really difficult matchup into Drukhari now, and so he's not going to spend as much time on the Dark Angels. But he thinks if instead of running White Scars, he would still take Dark Angels because of their ability to shoot multiple transports away in a turn from the Drukhari, whereas White Scars struggle a lot more. Although a guy, Oliver Smith, did super well at Dallas and won a GT the previous weekend with a White Scars list with 30 Vanguard vets and 3 Volkite Contemptors, which, that's a heck of a list. All the efficiency. Let's just take the best units. And it's been working for him.
It's not the worst thing. I mean, take the best. I mean, I think the 3 Volkites probably a bit much, but you lose a lot of CP, but yeah.
Let me see. The greatest reveal will be Fulgrim. We have not had a Primarch in a very long time, but I imagined it would have been
like overdue.
But
we're definitely overdue, I feel like.
Maybe in this, well, because they already revealed Bellicor, I don't imagine a Primarch plus Bellicor are going to be in another campaign in the next campaign book. Yeah,
I mean Primarch's obviously much more different. We knew Bellicor was already around though, right?
Yeah,
it's not like Bellicor he was lost forever and then came back. He's just getting a new model, whereas the Primarch would be a new thing, entirely. But I don't know. I hope that they have. Obviously, you don't want to have 3 Primarchs, 4 Primarchs in addition, but I definitely feel like it's time. We're overdue.
Who would you like it to be? Next Primarch.
Well, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to make a chaos joke and say Lionel Johnson. I think a really cool. My 2 top picks for Loyalist. Okay, so here are my picks for Loyalist. I would love a Wolfen Lehman Rust who's emerged out of the Eye of Terror after 10,000 years. And he's been fighting chaos, and he's he's gone all Wolfen and old man Russ, full gray beard, Santa Claus, just fully gone Wolfen, but still parts of him is Wolfen style. That would be really cool. And then my loyalist, my chaos side would be Lionel Johnson. No, I'm kidding. My chaos side would be probably Fulgrim. Because I'd much rather have new Emperor's Children than new World Eaters.
So not Angron.
Well, I don't know. I feel like Angron's kind of... I don't know. He's just so one-dimensional. Oh, Hulk Smash, right? He's basically just a Bloodthirster in Power Armor.
They've been pushing the Slanesh a lot. Both Demons and Emperor's Children obviously got the really good rule set. So he seems fairly likely. Which is the Slanesh emphasis, both in Sigmar and 40k. It would make sense for him to be the Primarch.
And they've definitely mentioned him quite a few times in the background in the last 3 or 4 books. They've been oh, there's a snake dude with 4 arms and wings. That's oh yeah, that's Fulgrim.
I would like to see the Sanguinar updated to be the Spirit of Sanguinius and get a new giant model.
Get out of here, Jer. Everyone wants Sanguinius to come back, but I'm
not Sanguinius, but it's the spirit of him in the Sanguinar.
Yeah. Or I'd love Vulcan just because he is perpetual, so it makes a lot of sense for him to come back. If
Vulcan
he just
would be cool.
And I've always liked Vulcan. I used to play Salamanders. That was my first Space Marines that I ever played with Salamanders. So I always loved his background. But he's actually a good Marine. He's actually a good Space Marine. He's like noble, whereas all the other ones are like fairly like, I don't know, they're jerks.
John would love to see Khan. That would be his pick.
Cool too. And anyone, Connor, Russ, just like one of them, like, or even like Korax, like any of the ones that basically just flew into the Eye of Terror to go kill Chaos, just having them come out after like 10,000 years and just being like totally like mental and like psychotic, but like happy. Because like, and with Russ, they've been teasing it. They're like, oh, when the wolf time comes, Russ will return. And obviously, we all know Lionel Johnson's basically in the Rock, so he's there. So he would be an easy one to just like explain. You know, you don't have to do a lot of backstory for that. You can just say, oh, the Watchers finally decided to wake him up out of his nap.
Yeah, I feel like if they were gonna do him though, they would have saved the Dark Angel Codex for a little later.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that. I mean, I don't think we're gonna get it, but
thoughts on Riptide versus Yuvar versus Arvar? The Rip. But honestly, Riptide is not mandatory. There are a lot of points for a single model that marker lights are so unreliable in the. There's a lot of terrain, so it's hard to get angles. And once the marker lights are committed, they have basically no defense, so they just instantly die. That you don't really want that. You want efficient units. So things like Crisis Suits buffed by the Farsight Enclave strat and Commanders are still by far the best.
yeah. Hey Richard, I sent you a message on Discord, but I gotta go here.
Okie doke. Appreciate you hanging out, Jim. Thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for happy to hop on and chat.
It's been a while since we had a chat. You know, we got to see each other at many tournaments in 2019, so hopefully we'll get back to that later in the season and next year. But Jim, what do you have to promote? Where can people find you? And what do they have to look forward to from the Jim Vesal universe?
Yeah. So I have a YouTube channel called Duplicity Paint Studio. Check that out. Also on Twitch at Duplicity Paint. So check those out. And my Instagram is JimboV_paints, where I put all my hobby progress, stuff like that. So yeah, give me a follow. I'm doing podcasting and YouTube videoing and live streaming and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you guys are interested in more kind of, I'd say variety, it's a lot of like, it's very mixed bag. So you get a little bit of everything. Well, mostly me just telling people my mostly right opinions. So with that said, yeah, it's been awesome. So I appreciate you.
He's an amazing member of our community. So please do check out his content and a very good friend of the Art of War. So thanks so much for joining us, Jim. Thank you everybody for watching and for all your questions. And we will see you for tomorrow's game, which is going to be me playing my updated Necron list into Mr. Nick Nanavati playing his Drukhari. We'll hope to see you then. So long.
Member of the world's most knowledgeable and positive community.
The War Room is an exclusive group that brings together the world's best 40k players as coaches to help anyone from a newer player to an experienced tournament veteran learn, grow, and reach their goals within our shared hobby.
Each week we offer a variety of live stream coaching matches centered around illuminating the thought process and in-game decision making of top players. We explain everything we're doing and why.
You'll learn about the ever-evolving meta, match play mission theory, list making, and have access to analysis of all the latest rules. Our team of highly experienced coaches teach weekly clinics on each individual faction, strategy sessions on deployment and cool tricks, and meta-analyses each week during Meta Monday.
We are committed to not only providing the best knowledge for players available, but also building a one-of-a-kind community.
Come be a part of the War Room.